Okay, it's time, so we can start the session now. So first and foremost, I would like to welcome all of you to today's webinar on opportunities and potential in mobile media. Today we have with us Moneka Khurana, who is a strategic consultant and trainer. She has more than 13 years of experience in digital marketing space, and she's worked with brands across various categories, including FMCG, automobile, IT, durables, and finance. If I look at the overall experience she has and the number of awards she has won, it won't be wrong to say that she's actually among the top few digital marketers in our country today. So I'm really delighted to have her here with us today. Welcome, Moneka. Thanks for joining in. So the topic of today's session is opportunities and potential in mobile media. I don't know how many of you read the recent Facebook report. Facebook, on an average, receives more than 750 million users through mobile devices, out of which 180 million are accessing Facebook only through mobile. And mobile, in fact, accounts for more than 30% of the Facebook revenue. So I'm sure this is one of the mediums that, as a marketers, we can't ignore. So today's session is actually going to be a bird-eye view of overall mobile landscape, and we'll look into various case studies on how various businesses are using it, and what are the various cost-effective ways of running campaigns on this platform. So before I hand over the session to Moneka, those of you who have joined in for the first time, let me just give the logistics with all of you. This session will go on for about an hour. We will have a presentation for about 40 minutes. So during this time, if you have any question about the session, just type it down in the chat or question panel. And once the presentation is over, we'll try to take all possible questions that you will be putting up during this period. So you can put your question in the control panel window within the question section, or you can also tweet it with hash ask_DV hashtag. Now, without taking any further time, Moneka, over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kapil. That was a very heartening introduction, I must say. And I'm humbled to be a part of this session. What I do want to tell the audience who is attending, it's really nice to see such an enthusiastic participation, and it sure is relevant, keeping in mind that all of us need to keep learning digital all the time because it's evolving, and there is so much that's happening in the space. And of course, mobile being one of the new kids on the block, which actually has turned an adult far sooner than we imagined. So I think we are all in this learning room to actually pick up as many nuggets as we can about this space. But what I do want to tell you guys as a disclaimer is that it's a vast space, and we are kind of going to be gathering for a very short time. So I know all of you may have different expectations out of the session, but there could be some which may get addressed, there could be some which may not get addressed. So some of it we may be able to leave behind, some of it we may be able to answer in Q&A, and some of it you'll have to wait for the sequel of a webinar where we could take up what you guys want to hear more and cover that in a subsequent session. So I just want to kind of really park that thought with you guys, because it is a very big space. I want to also tell you guys, I started off making this presentation and it was like 100 slides plus, and now I've gone and chopped it to 30. So you can see how much I've had to crunch it. So anyway, so we'll go right into the presentation. I'm hoping you guys can see the slides. And so here I'm going to cover. I'm going to cover the landscape per se, to just give a bird's overview on how large it is and how unutilized it is currently. Within it, we will do a deep dive into the mobile internet behavior, because that's really a very rich space where there's a lot of action happening and it's growing rapidly. There are some very interesting myths I'm going to bust for you guys, which will again be an eye-opener of sorts. Then we look at the media opportunities which exist in this space, which I must again say are very fragmented, and it's all going to boil down to user behavior, which will decide what media mix to be using on mobile. Lastly, we'll do a couple of media plan must do's, and if time permits, we'll do case studies. Or anyways, this session will be recorded, so we'll upload it. So here's a quick statistical overview, and all the numbers have been pulled out from very, very credible and reliable sources. So this is pretty much of authentic information, where the base is as large as 1 million and is projected to turn 1 billion by the end of the year. As you can see, the rural space is not far behind. It is growing rapidly, and it is much, much larger than we would have all imagined it to be. It's already 40% of the overall. In terms of active internet users, there are already 150 active internet users on the mobile. And as far as smartphone users go, as by definition, there are about 60 million, of which, as you can see, only 2.5 million use iPhone users. So it's not that every user today is an iPhone user, and every piece of content we make needs to reach target an iPhone user. Moving to a very interesting trend. As you can see, that mobile internet consumption has already surpassed desktop internet. It's already exceeding where desktop internet has kind of tapered off, and it's only going to grow more and more with time. What is very interesting about mobile internet use is that, especially from the rural areas and smaller towns and metros, is that this is a user internet on their, and they had the internet and they were able to access it on the mobile, and that's as 1% overall mobile internet usage, which again is huge and very eye-opening. Coming to a little bit of a demographic understanding, as you can see, of course, SEC A, but B and C are still distributed as well. And of course, they're coming largely from metros, the top 8 metros, and small metros and towns are slowly catching up in terms of mobile internet penetration. And this is thanks to the overall value of a feature packed handset coming down, and the fact that it is also allowing users to access internet at very, very nominal rock bottom pricing because of the kind of tariffs that are being operators to be able to use mobile internet, be it day cards, be it week cards, be it prepaid cards. So that makes it all very easy for people to cap their internet consumption and yet have access. Very interesting. When we look at mobile apps are really, really big out there. So there are two kinds of apps, right? One is apps which are default burnt on your handset, and the other is the connected apps, which obviously a lot of them we already by default download or have on our phones, like our social media apps and our chat apps and stuff like that. And then there is a whole gamut of apps in the entertainment space, in the be it music, be it games, and all those other categories. So what is interesting is connected apps is contributing to almost 50% of that traffic that is coming onto the mobile internet, and that again is very, very big. So apps cannot be ignored in that sense because of volume it's contributing to in terms of penetration and time spent. Now, broadly, you can categorize the mobile internet consumption into three categories. One is downloads, which again, as a behavioral pattern, is very, very, it has always been a primary driver and trigger to access the mobile internet, because you typically want to download it to get an app or to get a music file or load a game and stuff like that. So that's contributing to the largest chunk, followed by social media, which Kapil rightly mentioned some time back in terms of numbers, how large Facebook and other players are. Almost today, all of us are connecting to our social media pages via the mobile phone. And lastly, it's generic browsing, which we would typically do for an information search or for news or any such of content. In If I further deep dive into social media specifically, which is as a landscape is very prevalent on the mobile phone, it's not going to be surprising for any of us to see that Facebook Facebook as a part of the social networking community, and followed by there are a few other apps, like if you all have heard of SMS Gupshup and few others. SMS Gupshup is again an app which you can even use to kind of do a lot of community activities without being connected. And of course, a large driver for people to get onto this is to get onto the social networking site on the mobile phone is very similar to what it is on the desktop. Coming to instant messaging, which is an absolute no-brainer again, because today there is heavy amount of chat people indulge into by phone, and these free chat apps become an absolute boon to do that, especially even internationally, because now you don't have to worry about burning a hole in your pocket to chat with somebody internationally on your phone because of the free chat apps. And then there's microblogging, which again is primarily consumed more for real-time news dissemination in terms of breaking news information. So if you look at the blue area down, where I've just tried to highlight in terms of beyond social networking, how how men are behaving when it comes to mobile internet versus how women are behaving. So men are spending, of course, a whole lot of time browsing on their smartphones, and of course, gaming is one category which is being accessed in a very big way, and 80% of the apps that get downloaded are gaming apps. Women, on the other hand, are spending a lot more time on calls and on chat. So if at all they're getting onto the mobile internet, they're really spending time chatting versus browsing. And in terms of app installations, again, men on an average are installing 16 applications versus women who are installing about 11 applications. Now, when you go a little broader in terms of when they browse, what do they really search for? They're typically searching, again, one of the five categories, which range from entertainment to lifestyle to telecommunication to local searches, which is actually very big, because local searches is where the mobile is most handy and you'll end up quickly picking up the phone and looking up nearby locations. What is again interesting in searching is that mobile search gets very active when you're off your desktop computer, and typically that's post office hours or on weekends when you're really not working. And the other time when it's very peak is when there are vacations, holidays, or long weekends. So that's really the way searches surge on the mobile. The last category is the mobile video category, which again is like booming and getting really big. Some top lines on that: 30% of the YouTube views that happen are actually happening on a mobile device. For those who don't know, Apalya and ViewClip are two major players when it comes to video content. So Apalya is more like a mobile TV, and ViewClip is a full-fledged video content provider which broadcasts a whole lot of content and has optimized it very effectively for the medium. I'm going to quickly move into myths. So that was more like a broad landscape where we've tried to do a deep dive in terms of how men and women are behaving, what are they consuming, and what's really big on the mobile. When it comes to myths, some interesting myths which we should all be aware of. We as marketers believe that your audience is essentially an iPhone user or an iPad user. Actually, 80%, in fact, 85% of the phones today in India are feature phones. And it's only the 15% which are smartphones, and within 15%, it's only 2 to 3% which are really the iPhone category. So in that sense, we have a large audience which is using a smartphone of sorts, but is not necessarily an iPhone user. The second myth is that we believe that only a smartphone user, which is the 15% base, is actually able to enjoy apps. In fact, today's feature phones are as rich as all smartphones, and they can enable you to push all kinds of rich media content as you would have on a smartphone. Again, the belief is that, because of screen size and because of the way the page designs are, we can run only tiny banners. In fact, not. You can actually, because of the kind of formats today that are being made available by technology providers, you can run full page ads on your mobile screen, which you can actually place like you would have even done on a TV, on a TV show, where it could be a pre a show, in the middle of a show, and post a show. So that's the way you could kind of even place your ads. The next myth is that mobile internet users are the same guys who already use internet. I just shared in the landscape slides that how there's a 41% user base who is using mobile on the first time only from the who's using internet the first time only from the mobile. So it's not true that the PC guys are the ones who are duplicating traffic on the mobile. There's a huge unique set of users who are coming there or who have consumed it the first time there. The last myth that we look at is the usage patterns, where again a very interesting slide, where the if we remember the way we used to use internet on the desktop before the mobile days, it was typically starting with Google, where the first thing we would do when we wanted to use the internet is go on search. The next big thing that happened is email, and then the third big thing that happened is streaming in the form of video content and a whole lot of streamed content. Mobile has gone reverse. Mobile internet consumption began actually from entertainment, where entertainment was the big driver, the big trigger for people to want to get onto mobile internet, followed by communication, which is what today we all do primarily on the mobile, be it by connecting to a Facebook or a WhatsApp or a Skype or either of those. And lastly, it's information. So the trend has been pretty reversed there. So those were the set of myths which now bring us to what are the opportunities that we see as marketers or advertisers for ourselves. I've tried to keep slides very simple, so because like I mentioned, there's a lot that is available and possible on the mobile, but just for us to get like a quick sense of it, I've tried to kind of keep it very simply categorized. So I've broken it into 4 quadrants. The first quadrant is SMS, the second is voice, the third is WAP and apps, and the fourth is proximity marketing. So these are the 4 ways or the 4 genres via which you can market to your audience. And within each genre, there are a host of options. So I'll just pull out some of them in each for us to get a feel. So if you look at SMS, which is also called text, you have typically push and pull SMS ad options where you would probably choose to subscribe to receive some kind of SMSs from the advertiser, or the advertiser, if you are not on DND, would send across a message to you as a sponsored message. Similarly, footers, where you kind of have subscribed to certain information services and it comes to you along with a tagged advertising message. So on and so forth as far as text goes. When we look at voice, again, there are interesting options, and voice gets very hugely leveraged more for the rural or dark market or illiterate users, or also for a campaign where the nature of the campaign demands using IVR or voice as a platform in a big way. So it could be in an either scenario. So where what you could do is you could actually buy out outbound calls and get an and the advertiser could actually make targeted calls to the subscribers. You could sponsor a ringtone. You could do a complete voice portal where just the way we use a whole lot of services via IVR, you could have a branded channel via IVR. Those are the kind of things you can do on voice. When we look at WAP and apps, again, whole lot of options. WAP and apps, of course, you can create your own assets on the mobile in the form of a WAP site, in the form of a branded app, and you can promote it actively through other WAP sites and through other apps, which is typically is called WAP advertising or in-app advertising, which you can use even offline, where the URL can be carried in all your mass media communication, so that people are able to kind of uh, access the site or look up the information that you've put up there. Lastly, proximity marketing, again, very interesting. So blue casting, which some of us may have heard of, is again a technology which allows us to, for free, where the user doesn't have to pay anything, and it is still permission based. So if the user chooses to opt in for a piece of content that you want to push to him, then he would receive it on his phone and he could consume it, and it can be as engaging as the advertiser desires, be it in the form of a game, in the form of a video, and worse. And then we have, of course, videos which we could actually run full-fledged TVCs again through Bluecasting itself. And the others pretty much are similar in terms of how we can use media effectively. Like, for example, augmented reality, which we all would have heard of, is in the form of a marriage of virtual and physical worlds, where you could be in a mall and engage with the brand very effectively virtually, whilst being physically close to the brand. So here's some interesting, here's again a broad overview in terms of the kind of formats you can use. So you have, we spoke about pre, mid, and post roll. So you have something which you can run pre an app loads or pre a game loads and after, the way we would do it in a TV format. You have, in terms of choices, you can run banners which can range from a video banner to a full page banner to a flash banner or a static banner. What is very interesting is the kind of call to actions you can actually append to your advertising. And if it's used smartly, it can really be far more effective in terms of a response from the consumer, because on a phone ad you can actually say click to, so if it's a Domino's can say click to save address or click to save number, or if it's a piece of video, it can immediately say click to download. If it is a lead, it can actually get them to register there and then. So depending on what you want them to do, the call out can clearly mention that upfront, and it can actually enable them to do that, to the extent where you can say click to call, and the moment they click on that banner, they get connected to the call center of that brand. So that's the kind of call to actions that you can actually leverage and use effectively. What evolved advertisers are also doing is using very, because smartphones are touch phones primarily, so using a lot of call outs like tap the phone, swipe the banner, scratch the banner, drag it, shake it, which you can actually do, makes the engagement much richer and much more effective in terms of a piece of communication. So if I quickly tell you what I mean, here's something what I was saying. So it's like, if you the banner that you see which says swipe to play, you can actually swipe with your finger and then start playing it. Scratch where it's start doing it. The Kisan ad you see on the extreme right, you actually could shake that phone and those tomatoes would turn into ketchup and get displayed there. So that brings in a whole lot of engagement and richness to the communication. In terms of what we can measure, is where, of course, it's a highly measurable medium. You can measure everything that you need to, and it depends on how you've kind of set up the campaign. So if right from simple things like, you may want to measure from a data standpoint, you may want to measure how many exposures. If it's a particular action, then what are the number of responses you got to that action, of that how many converted. All of that can be measured, including, of course, simpler things like how many people clicked on my ad, how much time did they spend, where did they come from, because demographics and user information is a lot more accessible on the mobile versus any other medium, because these are registered users, and they kind of have shared their information. So it becomes much easier through technology to be able to get a visibility of who are these users who are actually engaging with you. What is again very interesting from a matrix standpoint, beyond what I shared we could measure, you can actually measure by actually with research specialists. You can measure various variables which you would have measured in a mass media campaign in terms of brand metrics, where you could actually measure brand awareness, message association, purchase intent, all of that in a very meticulous manner, and you would actually be able to attribute the amount of efficacy the mobile campaign delivered for your overall brand campaign when you kind of ran the program. So that brings us to what are our what is into and is very simple. simple. This is where we tend to go wrong.
Hey, Monica, can I stop you for a minute?
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Yeah, so actually, when you started with this slide, there was some disturbance that came from your side. So can you just start this slide
Okay,
once again? Yeah, so that'll be good.
repeat.
Repeat what you said on this
Sure,
slide.
sure, I'll do that. Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, cool. Okay, so what we were talking about is some of the mobile media plan must-dos in terms of when we are looking at running a media campaign, we need to make sure that our destination where we want to land the user is highly optimized so that the experience is consistent and rich enough for them to want to engage with the brand and deliver the action you expect the visitor to. Because typically we don't land up spending enough time and invest enough into making sure that we're creating the right mobile assets, and which is where we tend to lose out a lot. So it's really not about saying, okay, let me make a little page and put it up there. You need to be able to understand whether the campaign merits creating a full-fledged application or a game, or even for that matter making sure that your overall website is responsive to run seamlessly on the mobile platform as well. Now, the other point to note for a from a mobile planning perspective is to be able to understand your attribution strategy in terms of how you would attribute the success of a campaign to the mobile. So because it can contribute to various stages of your sales funnel. So it's important to be able to plot depending on the kind of campaign you structure as to what is the role mobile will play and what can you attribute to mobile as a success parameter, and that needs to be carved out right at the onset. Coming to being able to target messaging effectively, because mobile has the ability to be able to target messaging. So depending on whether you're talking to a user in Delhi versus Bangalore, or whether you're talking to a college student versus a yuppie, we need to be able to customize that communication so that you're able to connect more effectively and get that response from them. So therefore that piece is very important to look into when we are devising a complete communication campaign on the mobile. Ensuring a mobile budget which is not where you actually want to test effectively, it should not be lower than at least 5% of your overall spends, where it could be, if it's only a digital campaign, it could be 5% of that, and if it's an overall mass campaign, it should still be 5% of that as a start point where you're still testing and learning. But as the comfort grows today, for example, in the US, it's actually even 80-85% of their media plans sometimes are attributed to the mobile, and it can go that high. So it just depends on the kind of objectives you've laid out and this life stage at which you are from a mobile advertising standpoint. And initially, of course, we all want to test and learn, we want to kind of we want to be in the comfort zone. So 5% is the right start, and nothing, and it shouldn't be lower than that. Lastly, again, very important, if you recall a few slides, if you recall a slide which I showed, which had the options possible for an advertiser in the SMS space, in the WAP space, in the voice space, and in the proximity marketing space. There are a host of them. I mean, all put together, there are like at least 30-35 things you can do on the mobile, and where it's not like one is less important than the other or one is less effective than the other. It's more about what mix will work for you and what mix is going to help you deliver the objectives that have you set for your marketing campaign. So for example, if you're doing a very simple voting campaign, you may just do very well by doing only an SMS and an IVR based campaign. You don't need to really go beyond that. And of course, if budgets permit, and if even if you do banner ads, you'll still say click to call or click to vote kind of a thing, but that suffices. Versus where you're looking at a deeper engagement, or you're looking at higher TVC exposures, then you will focus more on allocating your spends more to video based ads, where you're actually promoting your TVC more than doing anything else. So it very much boils down to the objective of your campaign, which will decide whether what is the mix you should use. So yes, it can look very confusing that there's so much to do, but each medium within the mobile plays a very specific role, and it's all about mapping the role to the objective. So if I move on from here, interesting. So when I was talking about mapping, so just to give you a feel of it here, like for example, I want to target men, and I know, and the other important part is you should be able to map it to their user pattern. So it's about your your objective of your campaign and the user behavior of your target group, men. And their behavior, for example, is like where they're heavily into browsing, then for you it would make a whole lot of sense to make sure you have a rich mobile site where you can land him, and you are consistently doing enough mobile campaigns to be able to reach out to that relevant youngsters. Again, men do spend a lot of time on maps. So if you have an objective where it's more about getting walk-in stores, then you sure could consider a whole lot of proximity marketing options which we spoke about, where maps is again a very powerful tool in terms of proximity marketing, where since they check in their location normally to a map, so you could actually do a lot of location based ads. Then you have, of course, men spend a lot of time watching videos, and we spoke about this a while back. So again, maybe being able to target a lot of your TVCs or a lot of your video communication to reach out to them on the mobile phone can again work very effectively, versus where we did read a statistic on men do tend to download a whole lot of apps. So creating an app as a to complement your regular site could again be very effective as long as you're able to enrich. Then it could bring in a lot more stickiness because they are avid app users. So that's the way we need to look at it. So we need to look at objective, we need to look at we need to look at user behavior, and then we need to see what's the which media type will be appropriate to address both of them. Now there's this last section on case studies, and I think we do have about 5-7 minutes, so I'll try and cover one of them. What I've tried to do is have different kinds of case studies for you guys to get a feel, and for me to be able to reiterate that what media to choose is a function of what is the objective of your campaign. So for example, when Samsung launched, they essentially their features very effectively, and it's obviously a very rich smartphone loaded with features. So what they did is again being able to play on certain insights effectively. So what they did is there's a brick breaker game which in some stage either we've all played or seen. They actually replicated brick breaker game as a campaign asset and got users to play the game, and whilst each brick fell, there was a feature that got revealed in it in terms of what is this new thing that Samsung S was going to have. That's how they engaged that consumer in a manner which the consumer was most used to, and ensured that he took away the feature list which they wanted to impart to them in terms of being upgrade S4. And what it did for them, it got them um, as you see, close to 2 lakh clicks, 90,000 odd clicks, and a click-through ratio where if some of you have experimented adequately on the internet, 2.3% sounds bizarre for an internet campaign you would have done on the desktop using the desktop, but on the mobile, getting a 2% to a 6%, 7% is a no-brainer as long as we have the right asset and we use the right technique to market it. Coming to a proximity case study, the one we saw earlier was more about branding launch-led. This was more about a more sharper goal, where it was more about making them more about reaching out to a very targeted user base, help them consider the car for a test drive. And they did take into account that the pre-stage to a test drive is them being armed and completely convinced of the features of the car. So what they did is they actually targeted only airports, and at the airports they actually blue casting gave allow us took permission to download the brochure, where if they opted in to download the brochure, the entire the entire brochure was made and very interesting, got downloaded on phone, and they could actually view all the features they needed to know before taking a decision for a test drive. And again, at the airport, where the mindset is a lot more relaxed and where you're typically waiting, that was also factored in, and they again got excellent downloads in for airports in less than a week, which was about 43,000 people landed up taking that brochure and actually reading it. They could measure that because the data allows you to know whether they downloaded it and consumed it. Interesting. IVR based. So we spoke about a launch campaign. We spoke about an auto campaign wanting to get test drives. Here's a third one, which was more promotion but had a sales objective in mind. And again, here it was more about, it was a campaign and the dealer demanded that they leverage IVR in a very effective way. And this was primarily for Rajasthan as a state. So what they did was they they kind of created a small on IVR, and they had a promotion. And what was done is on radio the promotion was announced, and to participate they had to go to the IVR. So, and it was a very funny light-hearted promotion. People kind of and kind of actually making that effort to call into the IVR number. So where they had every day a funny situation being given, and to kind of complete that situation, they had IVR, and that got them like 12,000 completed calls with the response within the 4-week period. And it was again in early days where IVR, where mobile advertising was hardly being leveraged the way it is now, right? But that case study was more to give you a feel of why IVR makes sense and how IVR can be leveraged in as exciting a way as other platforms on mobile can be. We spoke about in the media plan must-dos about having the right mobile assets, the content. So, for example, where Quaker actually made the effort to create a very comprehensive zone where they kept mobile as a medium in mind, and they gave away all mobile friendly features. They incorporated a whole lot of mobile friendly features in it, which ranged from and which were more utility friendly, keeping in mind mobile behavior and the user behavior on the mobile. Like they could actually count their calories, they could take away quick tips, they could participate in activities, and also it was again promoted in a big way. And what it did for them is it got far more stickiness that they would have otherwise got, and it got them a whole lot of engaged users within a span of 10 days, where they had 25,000 people actually getting onto this branded zone and interacting, right? So what we've really done is we've tried to tell you how IVR can be used interestingly, how content can be made more mobile friendly, how brands can launch themselves in a way which engaging, and how you can give away a lot more information using various media like on mobile. So I've tried to kind of keep it within the 40-minute slot. I'm not sure if it went fast, but we and also we could take on questions here on in terms of whatever has been playing on your mind when I'm kind of taking you guys through the presentation. So Kapil?
Great. Yeah, thanks a lot, Monica. First of all, it was quite an informative session. I mean, I was not aware that there's so much that is possible from mobile space before this session. So definitely, a lot more informative for me as well. So before so guys, you can now start putting up questions in the question panel. So I have one question from you, Monica. I mean, we looked into overall mobile landscape, what is the user behavior and how to really effectively use it. And you mentioned that you should be budgeting about 5% in the mobile space of the overall digital marketing space.
That's right.
So
yeah.
In your experience working with various brands, is there a particular segment that is investing more on the mobile space? I mean, how is it that India market is shaping up at a macro level? So if you could share some light on that.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Yeah, that's a very interesting question. So there are so the way it's divided is, so there is something called a category of direct advertisers on the mobile, which essentially comprises of the mobile operators themselves who spend really big on the mobile medium. and who have a very skewed split in terms of how much they allocate to mobile versus otherwise. Then there is the OEM category, which is your handset category, which again spends in a very substantial way on the mobile platform. And then there is the mobile content providers, for whom it's about right time, right place, right user, where they know that this consumer is browsing, is playing games, and if I had to kind of promote my game, I could kind of sell it to him. So those are guys. So these mobile content providers are again guys who really rely on the mobile medium in a big way to target and reach out to their consumers. So that's a primary user base. I mean, primary set of categories. And then there is the other more, not very mobile dependent, but category which spends heavily. It comprises of essentially your automobiles. And the automobile category spends in a big way on the mobile. And then there is the service providers who offer various kinds of services to consumers, again tend to leverage mobile big way, right? Your OLX, to all these guys who need to kind of actively have an interaction going. So those are the two categories.
Great. By the way, I was recently checking out the statistics at Digital Vidya, and I could figure out that in all the promotional emailers that we are sending out, more than 60% of them are actually getting read on the mobile space. So since then, I mean, that's our first mandate to change. Right now, our website is not mobile friendly, even our emailers are also not mobile friendly.
Yeah.
So that's something that we're trying to do it within this month. But definitely, I mean, we are sensing that people are shifting onto the mobile space. So now let me take up some of the questions from the audience. A lot of you have asked questions regarding the case studies. I hope, and you asked it earlier, so I hope like after Moneka walked you through number of case studies, they have been answered, or if there is any particular domain that you want to have more detail on, just mention it on the question section, please. And after that, there's a question from Raja TDK. He's saying that sometimes there are ads get annoying at look at on the mobile screens. How should the companies handle that, making sure that they reach out to customers effectively without stepping on their toes? So is there some guidelines you have in terms of how you should create, like especially the full page ads also that you talked about? Are there some sort of some kind of an ad networks or some other tips or tricks that you have to make sure that it's, I mean, you do it in a perfect way?
Yeah, so there are guidelines which are not like still very formal and statutory in nature, but there are pretty much of a few clear guidelines which by default all inventory all publishers are following. So one is, for example, in a lot of the ads we may see, especially which come as pre-rolls and stuff like that, they give you the option to kind of skip the ad after a certain number of seconds. So you are not forced to watch the entire ad. You have the option of skipping the ad after 5 seconds, 6 seconds, and move on to the content you want to really see. So one guideline is that you can skip an ad after a certain stage, and which is kept minimum. The second is there is a very accepted phenomena for all mobile content providers, and on the other hand for those who really actively download content, is that ads are okay as long as it's free content. So if they are downloading free content, or if mobile content providers are making available free content, then there is an acceptance to the fact that it will come with ads. But the moment you are paying for content or it's more premium content, you'll automatically see less ads or maybe even no ads in that kind of content. So that is always taken care of, keeping in mind the nature of the content.
Got it. I hope, Raja, you would have got your answer. Harish, there's a question from Harish Gandhi. He's saying, what are the typical metrics on cost per impression, per click, and per action in mobile? Yeah, so you want me to repeat the question? I think what he wants to know is that what are the...
the question, here's the metrics of cost.
Sorry.
So there's some disturbance.
Yeah, there is some. Now I think it's
Can you?
fine. So I'll just restate the question. The
Okay.
question is that, like for example, for banner
Okay. So the
advertisements,
question,
yeah.
yeah,
For example, in case of banner advertisements, we typically follow CPM. That was the like, and then Google came up with CPC, and that's what's been followed in a lot of publishers online. In the mobile space, what are the typical metrics of cost per impression, cost per click,
yeah,
cost per action? What are people really following,
yeah.
and for what objectives?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good question, and it's very nice that we're talking about it. So the point here is, one is mobile clearly is a far more ROI attractive media platform versus desktop internet to begin with. So for those who've been buying on internet would probably be aware that the typical CPM, which is your cost per thousand impressions, range in anywhere between 100 to 120, and if you probably buying very mass inventory, it can come down to 90, 80 as well. But when it comes to the mobile when it comes to mobile inventory, it is available at as low as 40 rupees to 50 rupees. So that's the kind of range in which you can buy mobile ads today. And of course, for example, there is a certain element of premium when you're looking at a very targeted ad or a very rich media ad. Then there's a premium which gets topped on it, but otherwise it's in the range of 40 to 50 rupees. Similar thing applies for even CPC, which is your cost per click, where your cost per click is again in the internet space. It can go, it can range from 8 rupees to 20 rupees, 25 rupees. But for mobile, it actually consistently, even if it has to be a premium targeted click, typically ranges anywhere from 2 rupees to 6 rupees. So if you're going very mass, you'll even get a click at 2. But if you're going a lot more targeted, then you'll get it in a 4 to 5 rupee range, and you'll get a decent amount of traffic. So
Yeah.
that benchmark is pretty much there.
Well, I think that all these figures definitely help us to decide on various mobile campaigns. So, guys,
Yeah.
I'm actually simultaneously taking up all the questions. There are a lot of questions that are coming up. I'll try to take all of them. And simultaneously, I'm launching a poll in front of you. You guys know that we as Vidya keep conducting trainings in the digital marketing space. In fact, me as Digital Vidya and Moneka together, we are also conceptualizing a training in the mobile marketing space as well. So if you are interested in knowing more about our trainings and want to participate in any one of them, you can just mention yes over here and someone from our team will call you. So by the time you're responding to it, I'm taking up more questions. So another question is from Ranjay Dasgupta. He's saying that do you have an approximate data of the ROI achieved in the mobile marketing space, especially in the developing countries like India? So in terms of if there is some campaign which you might be a part of and you want to highlight in terms of the ROI, that will be good.
Kapil, I am not able to hear you too well.
Okay, so I'll just repeat the question. The question is that do you have any approximate data on ROI achieved in mobile marketing,
Yeah. Okay.
especially in developing countries
Like,
like India?
yes. No, again, important question, but it's in a stage where internet has been for a long, long time and is still sort of getting cracking it, where there aren't very established benchmarks. One, second, there is a lot of fragmentation in terms of mobile media today. So in terms of being able to consolidate benchmarks and kind of appropriate it across media platforms is still not been possible, because there aren't that many case studies, or there hasn't been that much of a learning curve that's got built. Having said that, at least one or two, like cost standpoint, there is some benchmark. CTR standpoint, there is a benchmark to the extent where it is very comfortable to be able to, even for an average mobile campaign, deliver upwards of a zero point 0.5 to zero point 0.7 of a CTR, which is a click-through ratio on a mobile campaign, versus internet where typically average CTR is in the range of zero point 0.2 to zero point 0.3. So from a responsiveness efficacy standpoint, it's very safe to assume that it'll at least get you twice of the performance and twice of the response that that a desktop internet campaign has been getting you. So that benchmark is pretty much there, but the rest of it
Wow.
is very it's still very virgin in terms of its benchmark, basing the benchmarks.
Got it. Great. Thanks. There's some question around QR code strategy. I mean, we haven't really talked about it. Is it something that anybody is trying out in India, or is it something to really care about, or any of the case studies you've seen in that regard?
A mobile strategy, is that what we're asking?
No, no, no. I'm saying QR codes strategy. There's
Yeah,
a lot of
okay,
people
yeah,
asking, yeah.
oh, QR
So is
code.
there something specific to
Okay.
that? Yeah.
Okay, so QR codes again, the role, we need to basically understand the role of a QR code. I mean, when it started like a fad because it was just very novel and unique for a print ad or a poster to carry a QR code which people could kind of click into from their phone and go to their site or see their TVC or engage into a video, etc. But having said that, it still pretty much is around, it exists, but and a QR code is pretty much of a complementary and add-on tool for marketers, where the idea is that today the basic role and objective it achieves is, if you are carrying a print ad, a QR code gives you the opportunity to be able to push your TVC as well, because in your print ad, if you are carrying a QR code and if the guy clicks into that QR code, you can play your TVC there for him. So the idea is that it allows you to complement your static communication by being able to give him something more interactive or something more in depth, which can make you complete his call to action there and then and complete your communication cycle with him. That's the purpose that it has to achieve, and that's what it's meant to do. So that's what there is to it. And the only area where there is a little bit of a challenge and a struggle is that there are now multiple kinds of QR codes. There are rich media QR codes, and there are various QR codes where, unlike that black and white, now you can carry a logo as a QR code, a picture as a QR code, a lot of things. So the challenge is everyone does not have those kind of QR code readers, and it becomes a little bit of an entry barrier where they download a QR code reader and then they consume the content you're pushing to them. So that's where it kind of gets a little limiting, but standard QR codes are doable, and we can kind of carry it as a default part of our static communication, which we do.
Got that. So there's a lot that is possible with QR code.
Yeah.
Another interesting question is from Shailesh. He's saying that, okay, I've got the presentation and we understand that mobile marketing is really big. Now we need to start um, and with the mobile marketing. So where should we go? How should we approach? So if you could just list down the initial step that a company needs to take. As of now, they've done nothing in the mobile marketing.
Okay. So I think first things first, the initial steps is being able to identify a business challenge or a communication challenge which the company has, and being able to understand that if mobile, which is like an omnipresent, always on media platform, had to be deployed to be able to address that challenge, how best can it do it? So one is being able to identify an existing challenge, and then being able to understand how can mobile address that, or where can mobile play an effective role. So for example, there are lead generation campaigns which people do, and validating those leads is a challenge. Can mobile play a part there? Or for example, there is a whole lot of audience which they are reaching out to is on Facebook, and it's more youth, and they are using Facebook primarily on the mobile. So how can we leverage Facebook advertising on the mobile more effectively to be able to engage and connect. So it's more about the understanding where's the challenge and how mobile can play that role. Second is about which lot of large companies which I've worked with have done very, very well, is about being able to mandate a test and learn budget for mobile as a medium, and being able to list out the 2 to 3 things you would want to test as a part of mobile campaigns and actually deploy those irrespective of the KPIs that it's supposed to achieve. So where then you're able to build out a learning curve, and you're able to make you're able to make a case study internally to be able to validate and say that this really does work, and now we need to go whole hog and shift some of our spends from other media platforms to mobile. So those are 3 things. So one being understanding a challenge, second seeing how mobile can help address that challenge, third is being able to deploy and mandate a test and learn budget where there is a compulsive attempt made to be able to test and learn using the platform. And from there on, a vision will naturally build out in terms of how much one can leverage it and what one can do with it.
And got that. So finally, doing all of it, they realize that there is an opportunity and they really need to move on in a particular way. To get the whole thing implemented, they should contact you, or you have some agencies in your mind that you want to highlight.
There are multiple, and I mean, it again depends. I mean, so for example, today there has been an agency which has recently kind of taken up the complete mandate of being able to only do mobile marketing, which is ad to see. And before that, there used to be mobile to win. But it's not so much about only it's not so much about the agency. It's more about how the culturing can be made the culturing of thinking mobile is made integral to all partners, because at the end of the day there are a host of activities happening across various marketing programs, and every brief may not be available with a mobile agency at that point in time. So it's really about ensuring that there is a broad understanding on what mobile can do and being able to push it in various ways.
Got that. Great.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Uh,
actually want to take one question which I saw, and which is again important, where I saw a question which is about should we look at a website or should we look at an app
yeah,
when we're thinking
right,
of
Andy.
creating a destination for the brand. Now,
Uh-huh.
it's a very valid question, and it does come to everyone's mind. So here's the answer to it. Uh, as far as website goes, it should be looked at as a part of a responsive site. Now, there is nothing like a website. Today, we're living in a multi-screen world, and consumption is happening across different platforms, which includes even tablets. So the idea is to ensure that the site is re-optimized into a responsive site. So the experience is seamless, irrespective of whether they're on a desktop or they are on a phone or they are on a tablet. So that's a must-have and absolute default, which which we as marketers have to take cognizance to address. Secondly, as far as the application goes, and in isolation, the application has a whole lot of advantages. Like, for example, it's very sticky. It allows a user to spend more time. Second is, an application by default allows you to sync it up with a whole lot of mobile features which are there on the handset. So it allows you to talk to a whole lot of features and interlink it with a whole lot of connected apps which are already sitting on your handset. So that definitely becomes a big advantage, right? And the third is, we are used to living in a touch world where we don't really type URLs anymore. So if it's an app, then it's a branded app or whatever, the idea of just being able to it being available on one touch is a lot more appealing and intuitive for mobile users versus where they have to log into a URL and go. So those benefits it has, but the word of caution is, unless it is not made rich enough, one rather not venture into it. So the content strategy has to be really thought through for an application, because it has to be able to offer the value that they're used to getting in apps otherwise. And if it can't bring that value, then one rather not do it and make the site responsive. Versus if it can, and you can create assets which kind of fit in well into an application format, then by all means do it as a complementary exercise to the responsive side, and have it up there, and also then have an app strategy to be able to distribute and promote it, because if it's not getting distributed and not promoted, it's not getting consumed. So that is my take on it.
Got that. Great. I hope Abha, you've got your answer on this. I'll take a few more questions. Guys, it's already 4 o'clock, so I'll take a few more questions. And there are a lot of questions that probably not be able to take it in this time. So I'll pass on all the questions to Moneka. And whenever she will find time to answer it, we'll put it in the blog post. So, and we'll be doing the blog post sometime within this week. And as soon as we're ready with the blog post, we'll email you the link of the same, along with the recording of today's session. So, another question is asked by Rakesh. He's saying that is there any kind of tool which can be employed to track your mobile ads campaign? So, is there any sort of tools that you really recommend, like in overall mobile marketing, which you found attractive?
So to track performance, is that the need for a tool to track performance?
I think you've mentioned mobile ad campaigns, so probably to manage the campaign as well as to track the performance.
Yeah. That's again a good one. So today, like the way, so mobile in many ways is very similar to desktop internet, and it has similar tools the way a desktop internet did. So for example, if we've heard of ad servers, which essentially are centralized dashboards and centralized solutions via which you can release and publish the ad across the platforms that you've kind of planned for as a part of your media campaign. So if you have 10 publishers in your media plan, in your mobile media plan, to whom you're going to kind of show the campaign, then you can actually deploy an ad server, which again works on a pro rata basis in terms of costing. So it's always typically about 0.1, 0.3 or 0.4% of your overall marketing spends that you would consume on your on mobile media. And with that small investment, what you get is essentially access to a mobile ad server, which becomes a centralized dashboard where you can view your campaign in a single window across publishers, analyze your data real time in terms of how many sessions you're getting, how many clicks you're getting, which sites are working, which are not working, and in terms of changing creatives. So where you feel that this creative is not working, or there's a specific promotion, so for one day you want to pause and run that creative, all of that becomes possible with this dashboard. So you can deploy a mobile ad server, which is made available by a whole lot of networks and independently, which you can kind of bundle into your media plan budget and use it to deploy your entire campaign.
Got
So that is possible. Yeah.
Sure, great. So let me take up one more question before we end the session for today. The question we asked by Kamal is saying that is cost per embed better deal than cost per download or activation?
Kapil, I'm sorry, you'll have to repeat the question.
Yeah, is cost per embed or per install, I'm assuming, a deal better than cost per download or activation?
Okay. So again, it depends on what is it that you want the user to download or install. So for example, in some cases, even a temporary download serves the purpose and he needn't install it. In that case, it does its job. So therefore, in terms of purchase models, both models exist. So there's something called CPD, which is cost per download, and there's something called CPI, which is cost per install. So you may choose to go with one over the other, and specifically if, for example, it's an application that you are promoting and it's an application which you want to sort of distribute across various media, then it would make a whole lot of sense to use a cost per install as an option, along with whatever else you do to kind of create awareness to advertise it. So you essentially land up paying only when he installs the content, the content that you've kind of pushed out, versus where he's just downloading it. So it actually tracks for you that there were X installs which happened, and only then you pay for those installs. Yeah, does that
Got it.
address it?
Yes, I hope that answered. Kamal, have you got your answer? Okay, great. So, guys, at this point of time, really want to thank all of you for attending this session, and really want to thank Monica for taking time out and sharing all those details with us. I'm sure it's been a tremendous learning experience for you. I'm sure that's true for all of you. So, we will be doing a blog post and sending you the recording of this event over email within the next few days. And so, thank you, everyone. Thanks, Monica. Anything that you want to say before we close the
Thank you.
session?
Pleasure.
Thanks. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you
The
so
session
much.
is closed.
Yeah.